my channel. So today I have a Q&A session with my one and only sister, Naina. So today she's going to talk to us about what locums tenens is and how this works after you finish your residency. So this is one of the career options that you can go down if you are pursuing a career in internal medicine. So without further ado, Naina, do you want to tell us about yourself?
Sure. So I graduated from internal medicine residency last year, June 2023, and I took 3 months off to study for boards, which is mandatory within the first year of graduating. So took some time off for that, and then jumped into my job as a locum tenens internal medicine hospitalist. So let me just first explain what that is. So locum specifically means that you are a short-term worker and you are your own boss. So you could be an independent contractor, you can have your own LLC, you can even have a C Corp. So it really depends on how you want to branch out. But for me, specifically, I'm an independent contractor. I go to hospitals and tell them my availability, and based on their schedules, they give me their available shifts, which I decide to pick up or not. So this is completely independent work. This is 1099 contract. So it means that you are not directly employed by the hospital. You are your own person. You get to decide what you want and what you do not want to do. So basically, you're your own boss.
Awesome.
So locums tenens means that you are a travel doctor. So think of travel nurses, they're very common, and travel doctor is basically the same thing.
Okay, so for our second question, how does locums tenens differ from a per diem position?
Yes, so that's a great question because, including myself, lots of locums doctors also do per diem work. So the biggest difference is that the per diem work is usually a W-2. So for tax code, that generally means that you usually pay taxes through the hospital. They take care of that. But as a 1099 independent contractor, you pay your own taxes 4 times a year, and you are responsible for taking that money out. Also, another big difference is that with 1099 work, it usually depends whether you go through an agency or you work directly with the hospital. But usually if you go through the agency, they reimburse your travel expenses, hotel, lodging, things like that. But for W-2 work, they already assume that you live in the area, so they're not going to reimburse the amenities of the job. So that's also a very important thing because that could get a little pricey if you live out of state and you want to work W-2 at that hospital. And the third biggest thing is that 1099 work brings in a lot more money. The W-2 contracts are usually paid at the same rate as the other employees in the hospital, which is not as significant as a 1099 employee. So the third main difference between W-2 and 1099 work is the amount of pay. So usually for W-2 workers, you're paid at the same rate as the rest of the hospital employees in that hospitalist division, which is not as significant as a 1099 compensation because you are compensated for immediate need short-term work. They are generally going to give you almost 50% to 100% more than they typically would the rest of the employees at the hospital, which is unfair if you're employed directly by the hospital, but hey, they need that temporary short-term work, so they're going to pay it.
All right, so for our next question, so where do you start with locums? Like, how do you go about applying for jobs, and how far in advance do you typically plan to schedule your shifts?
So that's also a great question. So in order to even start searching for jobs, there are hundreds of locums companies out there and they want to be contacted. So what I would do is just set up a blank email template, find the emails for locums companies. They're readily available on the web. And just type in those emails, CC them or BCC them, and just put a general template. Hey, my name is Dr. So-and-so. I am interested in working in this specific area. I am credentialed in these states, and I would like to work in this, and this month. Let me know if there are any opportunities that you come across. And leave your name and maybe a Google Voice number or a number that you don't want spam calls.
So you did all of this about 3 months before you anticipated to work, or did you all this like right outside of residency?
Yes, so I would also try to do this sooner rather than later. So I started doing this while I was studying for boards because it does take an additional 1 to 2 months to get credentialed at that hospital that you're going to work at. So not only do you have to plan for your state licenses, DEA, but also you have to plan for the actual licensing at that specific hospital. So it's quite a to-do list, but once you get the hang of it, after 3-4 months, you really get into the flow of things.
For our third question, how do you prepare for locums in terms of your strategy for getting your medical license?
So this differs for a lot of people. Me specifically, I wanted to stay near friends and family, so I concentrated on the DC and Florida area. So I went about this by first getting my Florida license because that's where my parents lived, and then I jumped to the DC area, specifically Maryland and Virginia, since not as many jobs are available in actual DC. So licenses on average take anywhere from 3 weeks to 2 months to obtain. So I started applying for these licenses right before I graduated residency. So remember, I took 3 months off to study for boards. So that gave me ample enough time to get the DC area licenses as well as my Florida license so I can start working as soon as I finished boards.
And then did you have to pay for those licenses out of pocket?
Yes, so it was a little pricey. So I would definitely say the startup cost of becoming a locums physician is higher because you have to pay for multiple state licenses, which can range from anywhere from $200 to $600 each. And you also have to pay for a DEA license, which gives you access to prescribed controlled substances, which obviously you need as a hospitalist.
Okay. And so if you're doing per diem, will that all be covered by the job that you're going into, or?
Oh, no. Okay. So actually, if you're working as a per diem employee, the hospital may or may not cover that for you because technically you're not a full-fledged employee. You don't get all of the, the 401k benefits. You don't get the reimbursements as you would at a regular employee. So you would need to front some of those costs yourself.
Okay.
You would need to take care of those costs yourself.
Okay. So as a follow-up question to that, if you were a per diem hospitalist, would the cost of the medical license be covered under your contract, or do you still have to pay out of pocket?
So it depends on the per diem contract. Some per diem contracts will cover that for you, but most hospitals say that you're not a full-fledged employee, so they don't give all of those benefits, including licensing and CME reimbursements, which you need to, continue your license.
All right, so for our next question, is there an easier way to get licensed in multiple states other than, what you had just described? Because that sounds very complex.
Yes, so there is an organization, it's called the IMLC, and it is a group of 30 or 40 states. They came together and they decided that physician credentialing is a very arduous process, and we need to get physicians into our state more quickly and expedite the process for them. So they decided that if you are credentialed and approved by one of these states in this IMLC group, you can get a license in any other state in that group very quickly. We're talking about 2 to 3 weeks. So that's much better than the 3 week to 2 month time commitment that you would usually need.
All right, so for our next question, so what are the expenses of a typical locums doctor that differ from a hospitalist that has a W-2 form?
Yeah, so the locums doctor does have a few more expenses, such as health insurance, life insurance, whichever insurances that you would typically get at a normal W-2 job. So, just to kind of put that out there, health insurance can range from $400 a month for a healthy individual up to maybe $1,200 a month for somebody who needs more, health or...
Well, it's more chronic disease.
Yeah, more chronic diseases.
Okay, so for our next question, how do the expenses of a locums hospitalist differ from a typical hospitalist with the W-2 form?
So the locums hospitalist has a few more expenses, such as health insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, whichever you choose to have. So just to kind of give you some statistics, for a healthy individual, usually that's around $400 a month for health insurance. And, it could range all the way up to $2,000 a month for somebody with a lot of chronic health conditions. So that's the primary reason why people opt to go for a W-2 job. But hey, if you don't utilize healthcare as much, go for the $400 plan. It's simple, gives you everything you need. So other than health insurance, disability insurance, life insurance, all of that, taxes do differ very greatly from a 1099 employee versus a W-2 employee. So as a 1099 employee, I can write off a lot of expenses that I typically accumulate during the course of my job, such as hotel expenses, flight expenses, lodging, even apartment space to perform, apartment space to do my work in.
Okay.
So another big difference is the taxes between the two. So you can write off your expenses as a locums doctor, including lodging, travel, food. So these are expenses that you typically can't write off as a W-2 employee. So your taxes do tend to be a little less compared to a W-2 hospitalist employee, which is also a good benefit because you're your own boss. You get to decide what your own expenses are. So another tip for those people interested in saving on taxes as a hospitalist doctor, if you are a 1099 employee, you can open up your own 401k. So it's called a solo 401k, and you have the opportunity of contributing $23,000 for the 2024. So for example, if you work at a W-2 job as well as a 1099 contract, you can have two 401ks. So you can have a solo 401k, which you contribute $23,000 of your income to pre-tax. And you can also have a 401k or 403b plan directly given to you by the W-2 hospital. So you can have two 401ks. And if you have a 457 plan, which is an additional tax deferred account with your employee, with your W-2 hospital, that is an additional tax advantage that you have. So what I'm trying to say is if you are a locums doctor as well as a W-2 employee, you have all of these tax advantages for you.
Wow.
I don't know. This could totally be a different video too, so you could just cut it off.
I love it. I need to be more financially savvy. And honestly, that's like another video in and of itself. I think a lot of physicians need to work on their financial literacy. So
for sure,
because there's a lot of money that is being left on the table. All right, guys, so we waited till the middle of this video to give you the most juiciest information. So for our next question, how much do you make as a locums, or what's the average salary that a locums tenens hospitalist is expected to take home?
That's a great question because everyone is interested in the take-home pay as a locums physician, attracting a lot of doctors outside of residency. So what I can say is that a typical locums position can pay anywhere from $190 an hour up to $220 to $230 an hour. So for the average pay rate, so if you have about $200 an hour, you can easily make $2,500 a shift. Calculating that would be about $17,000 for a week of work, which is pretty good.
Wow.
It is pre-tax though. So
Oh no.
just be sure to write a very detailed list of all of your expenses that you have incurred during that week.
Wow. Okay. So piggybacking off of that, in a year, how much do you make ballpark? You don't have to give us exacts, but.
So if a locums doctor were to work an average of 10 to 15 shifts a month, they can easily make $350 a year. And that is working less than half a month, and you're taking your time, you're taking it easy on holidays. That's the biggest benefit I see as a locums doctor. I don't have to work holidays. I don't have to work summer vacation, spring break, Thanksgiving. If you look at the time that you spend working rather than spending time with your family and loved ones, that is probably the biggest cost for me. I want to be sure that I maximize my time with the people that I love. And that's why I chose this job for the time being.
Aw, so you can film YouTube videos with your little sis.
Yes, that's exactly.
So we answered the juicy question. Okay. So to recap, so ballpark, a locum tenens hospitalist can make up to $350K a year.
That's average. That's like 10 to 15 shifts a month. So you could work nonstop and work all holidays, work everything, and you can easily make $700,000 a month or a year.
Okay. So just to recap, so $350K a year on average, but you said only working 15 shifts a month, right? So that's like just 6 months a year you're working basically. Oh my God, guys, get 6 months off and you make $350K.
And that's comparable to your normal hospitalist job that you sign up to be, you sign up at your local hospital. You are working usually 7 on, 7 off, and your typical salary is anywhere from $250,000 to $300,000. So I would say, if you want to put in the effort and you have the time and energy to travel, I would definitely say go for locums right out of residency, because that way you can decide where you want to work in a clinical setting. Do you want to be more in a small community hospital? Do you want to be more in a large trauma 1 level care center that sees all kinds of patients coming in with all different specialties? Or, do you prefer the community lifestyle where you're a community doctor? So it really gives you so many different possibilities of your career as a physician. I highly, highly recommend locums to any graduating resident, as long as they, have the time and energy for it. So I must add that if you are working to pay off student loans, specifically with the Public Student Loan Forgiveness or PSLF program, the locums lifestyle is not for you. So if you're specifically in the Public Student Loan Forgiveness or PSLF program, you should not do locums, because you need to be in a nonprofit hospital, and there's a list of other restrictions that you need to follow. So this will not be for you. But if you are paying off student loans yourself using an independent route, then I would say locums is for you if you want to pay those loans off fast, because you can defer more of that money.
Okay, so for our next question, since you talked so passionately about why you love locums and why it's a good fit for you, but let's hear about some of the cons of this field.
So I feel like since I am more gravitated towards cities, it is difficult to find desired shifts. Specifically for me, that would be day shifts, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. In these high density city areas. So sometimes you would have to travel to more rural areas or small towns. And if that's not for you, then, this might be a little difficult. So flexibility is key. And I did touch on this earlier, but a lot of the expenses in locums are upfront. So I'm talking about healthcare, I'm talking about disability, life insurance, all of that. And your expenses are also upfront. They will be reimbursed later by the locums company or the hospital or taxes eventually, but this is the cost that you have to pay for yourself. And another big thing is if you do work in the city predominantly, you're mostly going to get night shifts, to be honest, because lots of doctors are in the city. There's a high supply, therefore more demand for the less desired shifts. So like I said, travel is of utmost importance in locums, and if that's not possible for you, then I would recommend doing a normal W-2 job in addition to locums.
Okay, so for our next question, this is in regards to your contract with the locums tenens. So when reviewing a contract, how do you know that this contract is good, or if negotiation is needed? What are some recommendations to go about doing that?
Yeah, so I can tell you the most important thing when reviewing a locums contract is to make sure that the malpractice insurance is clearly stated within the contract. So usually they give 1 mil to 3 mil with tail coverage. So you need that in writing, 1M/3M with tail. So that's a standard, and I can go into detail with another video. Okay, so when reviewing a contract, there are 3 main things you should look out for. So you need very specific dictation in the contract that there is a 1 million per incident and 3 million in the aggregate in terms of malpractice insurance. So this is really important to make sure that you are fully covered for any kind of medical malpractice case that you could get into, and you always need to protect yourself because even the best doctors out there are always sued at least once in their lifetime, so you need to be protected. The other thing is you need to make sure that shift cancellation is specifically stated in the contract. So, if you were to get sick, if you needed to cancel for whatever reason, those should definitely be in the contract. For example, the standard is 30 days. If you can't show up, just let them know in 30 days and they can just get you out of that contract. But also, they should give you leeway in case you get sick, because that you can't help that. And then the last thing is the non-compete clause. So some contracts have this, some don't. 2 years is standard. So that basically means that for 2 years, if you sign up with a locums company, they own you. So you can't go behind them and work for that hospital without them being involved for at least 2 years. You can always negotiate this term down, so you can, get up to a year of, being loyal to that locums company. And after that year, you can sign up with that hospital full-time, or you can continue to do locums with that hospital yourself. They usually have that because they feel like they introduced you, so they get the rights to you.
No.
Yeah, negotiate that down.
Wow. So to clarify, so if we're taking you as an example, how many of these locums companies have you signed contracts with? Is it just one, or is it with each location? Is there a new one that you signed?
So I signed up for 3 contracts in the DC area and 1 contract in the Florida area.
4.
Yes, so 4 total.
Okay.
I would recommend having at least 4 contracts at all times, just to make sure you have ample shifts.
Okay, nice, thanks. Wow, I'm learning so many things about locums that I did not know in the past year.
I know, and I've been doing this for a year.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So that's the real reason I kept you on this channel, because I wanted to learn more about what locums is. Okay, so it's all good information, and that actually sets us up for our last question of this segment. So you have demonstrated to our audience that you're very, very knowledgeable about this topic in general and how to negotiate contracts, all that good stuff. So where did you get your education from? How did you figure all this out?
So it was tough. You know, I saw all of my residency friends going the normal, boring route, you know, just signing up a contract with the hospital right off the bat. I did not want to do that. I did not want to follow the herd. So I looked into other possible ways where you can have full control over your hospitalist career. And I saw this locums word come up through my searches. And I felt like, you know, hey, this is the best way I can have full control, full reign over how I work, when I work, and what terms I work in. So this gave me the most flexibility, this gave me the most power. So that's why I signed with this right off the bat. And I looked into resources like the Locums Guy. He has a website that is very detailed, so I highly recommend that you go check that out.
I can put the link in the description box below for more information.
And I'm not getting paid for this, so don't worry.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. And you know, other sources like Physician Network, Physician Doctor Network, and Reddit also has great resources.
Nice. Okay. And
Yeah.
did you just did you just do a lot of asking around as well? Like, did you just try to email, you know, people who are doing locums? And how did you find these people?
I did. So I asked my program director on any, you know, if she had any contacts. And actually, there were 2 other previous hospitalists that graduated from my residency that went into locum. So I contacted them for more information, and that was really helpful. Honestly, if you find somebody in the locums field, reach out and ask them a lot of questions. That's the best way.
Yeah. I know. If there was anything I know about this topic, is that it's really hard to find an abundance of resources online for whatever reason. It's just like whenever I ask people about locums and what it is, it's so hard to get just to gather this information. So that's kind of why
I agree.
That's kind of why we wanted to put our heads together and create this video, because, you know, I'm sure you can speak more to this, but it was kind of a huge journey to get all this information and figure it out all on your own.
For sure. It was a struggle, but I have absolutely no regrets. I've enjoyed this year so much, and I really hope I inspire future doctors to go along this path, because it is really rewarding to really find your place in this career.
Awesome. Woo! All right. Well, thank you so much for being on my channel.
I'm so happy to be here.
I appreciate you. If you guys liked that content, please support my channel by liking and subscribing. And please leave a comment down below if you also have your own personal experience with locums, or if you have any questions. I'm happy to reach out to my sister and get an answer on your behalf, because she's the expert, as you guys have just seen. But anyways, if you guys like that video, stay tuned for more in my next video. I put out new videos every week. Bye!
Bye!